There are literally thousands of Christian denominations in the world, and what many of you haven't considered is that church governance and organization significantly impacts how religious bodies function, grow, and serve their community. And what you also may not know is that some of these are really good and some of them are pretty terrible. And one of those religions stands out above all of the rest and is hands down the best organized religion on earth. Spoilers, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm going to show you why in this episode. Let's take a minute to evaluate the structures of 5 major Christian expressions, focusing on how these frameworks support local communities and sustain long-term spiritual and social objectives. By emphasizing the strengths of the Latter-day Saint Church organization structure, this analysis highlights its potential as a model for religious community effectiveness that really should be adopted by all others, but unfortunately isn't and probably never will be. The basis for the Latter-day Saint organizational structure involves a first presidency, the highest governing body, composed of the president and his 2 counselors. This is also followed with the quorum of the 12 apostles, who hold authority second to the first presidency, functioning as special witnesses and overseeing the global church. This is also then followed by the quorums of the 70. They serve under the apostles to manage church affairs and missionary efforts worldwide. Now, what I want you to imagine is that you have a globe, and every section of that globe is divided into sections where there is a member of the 70 governing that area. And there are area authorities within that govern in smaller areas. And the first presidency and quorum of the 12 oversee groups of those areas so that literally all parts of the earth are under someone's authority to minister and to aid. What other church does that? Of course, within local communities or local areas, you have presiding bishops. They handle temporal and welfare programs, basically serving the needs of the people, whatever those needs may be. Further down into smaller local areas, you have stake presidents and bishoprics. They govern local areas, stakes and wards or congregations, providing pastoral and administrative leadership. The church in general has a massive welfare program. It's a highly structured assistance program offering food, employment, help, and disaster relief, and not just to its members, to everyone within their community. Remember those divided into governing groups across the entire globe? That's what this is for. This is a distribution network to help everyone within those areas, and it's divided by local councils, people who are from the areas who can engage with the people from those communities, even if they're not Latter-day Saints. The church also has an education system, a robust education system, I might add. It includes seminaries, institutes, and universities, such as Brigham Young University. And their schools are frequently listed in the top 20 schools in the United States. Have you heard of the Global Missionary Program? Yeah, with over 50,000 to 80,000 full-time missionaries serving at any given time. And then there's its lay ministry, non-paid clergy that fosters internal development and self-reliance. Basically, members get hands-on experience at developing leadership skills, communication skills, management skills,
nunchuck skills,
and education across a variety of subjects and disciplines as a regular part of their church experience. It's kind of like being an unpaid intern, but on a much wider scale. What are some of the obvious strengths within this organizational structure? Well, they have a hierarchical clarity, clear lines of authority and delegation. They have integrated programs, spiritual, educational, and welfare initiatives are all interconnected. They also have strong community ties. Wards and stakes function as tightly knit communities offering mutual support. But because of this hierarchical structure, those individual smaller organizations that are local and built around to service the people within that culture and community receive further guidance up the chain, which allows them to maintain unity and conformity to the doctrine. And no matter where you go in the world, What's going to be taught in those Bible study lessons at one church is going to be the same lessons taught in another congregation, even if it's on the other side of the earth. Some, of course, may point out the challenges with this kind of organizational structure. For instance, centralization. This can result in slower adaptation to localized issues. But actually, that's really not a problem. You have local leaders from local communities who are interacting with locals and their culture. They understand their culture. And while the lessons are centralized, they're adapted to the individual cultures within the communities all over the world. Meeting people where they're at. Cultural uniformity may also be presented as a challenge. The global policies may not fully adapt to local customs or contexts. But again, not really, because you have local people who understand the culture working within this system to help bring understanding and dispel cultural fears. In case you didn't guess, this type of organization adopted by the Latter-day Saints is heavily centered around the idea of church organization as founded by Moses under the direction of the Lord. Moses organized the people of Israel into congregations, and he had leaders that were over tens and leaders that were over hundreds and leaders that were over thousands. All this presenting a unified chain of authority that allowed for the dissemination of information to the people direct from one source, the prophet, Moses in this case, allowing them to maintain unity of their message while also being productive in serving the needs of the people where they're at. This is, of course, in contrast to many other denominations. Some of the most popular ones would be Catholicism, which shares some aspects with the Latter-day Saints in its organizational structure. You have the Pope and the cardinals and the bishops. But once you start getting into Protestantism, it really starts to diverge in many different directions. For example, the United Methodist Church. Their structure involves a general conference, council of bishops, annual conferences, and local church councils. They have a strong emphasis on connectionalism and social engagement. Their strengths include the encouragement of cooperation and resource sharing, and they also have institutionalized engagement in social justice issues. The challenges compared to the Latter-day Saints may be a bureaucracy, which may hinder responsiveness. They also have many divisions over doctrine and social issues, and this has fragmented its unity. A perfect example of this came about just prior to the American Civil War, where the Methodist Church was fractured over North and South over slavery. In addition, they also have a less cohesive global leadership structure compared to Latter-day Saints central governance and other organizations like the Catholic Church. The Presbyterians have a similar problem. Their structure involves a representative governance involving clergy and elders. They have sessions, presbyteries, synods, and general assemblies. Some would consider their strengths to be a democratic process, encouraging inclusivity, and a strong focus on theological education. The challenges compared to Latter-day Saints and others would be the complexity and layered governance, which can slow decision-making, doctrinal disputes, and aging demographics challenging growth. They also lack an integrated welfare and education program, limiting their focus to biblical instruction rather than the needs of the people and their further development within their communities, which may also limit their potential as an active mover within society and culture. Baptists, on the other hand, have a congregational polity with independent local churches. They also provide voluntary associations for missions and education. Some would suggest that their strengths include local autonomy, empowering grassroots ministry, along with an evangelism-focused outreach. Their challenges may include inconsistency in doctrine and practices, limited mechanisms for oversight and support, and lack a unified educational or welfare infrastructure. Just like the Methodists, a great example of the problems of their lack of unity and doctrinal inconsistency occurred prior to the Civil War, where Northern Baptists were divided from the Southern Baptists, again, over the practice of slavery and doctrines they invented to go along with it and justify keeping slaves in the South. These types of division amplified the problems that led to the American Civil War and to the further perpetuation of racism within America and decades after the Civil Rights Movement, with Southern Baptists finally apologizing for their role in this tragic part of American history in 1995. But how do non-denominational Christians, which is one of the newest types of Christianity that has come out, how does its structures hold up? Well, they have independent governance, often laid by senior pastors. They also have a wide variance in organization and doctrines, because every one of them is different and has its own way of evangelizing to the public. In this regard, it could be argued that they have high adaptability and cultural relevance. They also have rapid response to local needs. However, this also means that they have minimal accountability and structure. They lack cohesive doctrine or coordinated global missions. They have no standardized welfare or leadership training programs. Their cultural impact is always going to be very limited to local communities, often without any resources to make large-scale impacts on a community. And while their cultural relevance may be a strength, their ability to impact culture is always going to be small. Conclusion: while each Christian tradition offers valuable contributions to community life and spiritual formation, the organizational model of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints presents a uniquely comprehensive system. Its hierarchical clarity, integrated welfare and educational programs, and consistent doctrinal emphasis make it particularly effective in serving both its members and the broader community, both in temporal aspects as well as spiritual aspects. This structure not only fosters internal cohesion, but also positions the Latter-day Saint Church as a significant contributor to societal stability and growth. As religious institutions continue to evolve, the LDS model provides a notable blueprint for balancing spiritual, administrative, and humanitarian aims. The LDS community contributes far more to charitable activities than any other denomination on earth. Even as certain Catholic charities have begun to fail for lack of funding or lack of proper management, the LDS Church has actually stepped in and helped to bolster those charities and kept them from going under. The LDS Church, in fact, contributes over $1 billion in average of charity every year. No wonder that members of the Latter-day Saint community are often far more successful in business and spirituality than their Protestant and Catholic counterparts. They have a greater education system. They have more opportunities to serve and grow their skills and abilities within a leadership context within their basic religious services. If you want for yourself or for your children the greatest opportunities to grow as an individual, you can find no better organization than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to do so. There are local ward communities all over the place, and if you want to participate, you have a standing invitation to do so. It's very easy. You simply go to the LDS Church website, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.org, go to Find a Church or Find a Meeting House, type in your address, and it will tell you where the nearest congregation is and what times they meet. And then you simply show up on Sunday and enjoy the service. That's it. You are not expected to make a contribution. You are not expected to participate unless you really want to. But when you do go, be prepared to shake hands with a lot of people because they love to do that. But anyway, that's all I've got for you on this episode of All About Your Faith, and I will see you next time.